and welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be showing us how to draft a corset with a basque waistline and possibly yoke. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. You know that triangular waistline you've been seeing on different corset patterns of late? That's what we're going to be doing. So if you're new to this channel, you're welcome. Kindly click the subscribe button and click the bell so you get updated when I post new videos. And so let's get right into the tutorial. So right here I have some lines drafted on this paper. If you don't know what they mean, I'm just going to go ahead and explain them to you. So this line I have right here is where I started all my measurements from, and that is representing my shoulder line. And I took vertical measurements for all these lines that we are seeing here. So from this shoulder line, I marked my upper chest line, and that is 6 inches. I have 9 inches for my armhole circumference divided by 2, and that is the same line that you can see here. All right, I have my bust point line measuring 10.5 inches from all the way from the shoulder. Okay, under bust line 14 inches, my waistline 17 inches, and then from the waistline I measured 5 inches for my basque corset length. Okay, so you can go on to make yours 4.5 inches, 6 inches. That's definitely up to you. Now what I did eventually after marking those vertical measurements was to draw should I call it a corresponding horizontal line, because we are going to be taking horizontal measurements. Another thing I did was to mark my shoulder line. If I didn't explain this earlier, my shoulder line is 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches, and that is what we have here. Okay, so I have 8 inches right here. On this armhole line that I was explaining earlier, I also marked 8 inches. Okay, so I have 8 inches here as well, and then I connected the points to have a straight line, and that is where we're going to mark our armhole line. Okay, on this line right here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to come to my upper chest line. What I'm going to be doing is marking my bust span divided by 2 all the way down to the basque corset length, which is right here. So from the center front, I'm going to be marking 4 inches. My bust span is 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I'm just going to mark that all the way down. Okay, so I mark 4 inches, and I'll go on to connect the points to have a straight line. Now that we have this done, we're going to be marking our dart measurement. So you can go with a dart of 2 inches total. You can go with a dart of 3 inches total. So we're going to be going with 3 inches for this tutorial. So I'll be marking 1.5 inches on both sides of this bust span line. I'm going to do the same thing for my waist as well. Mark 1.5 inches on both sides, and then I'll go on to connect these points with a straight line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect this point to my bust point line with a curve. So we are beginning to start drafting our bra cup. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Connect from under bust, dart at under bust to the bust point line. I'll repeat the same thing for this side as well, and connect the points. So I'm going to be going with 1 inch above this line. Okay, so I'll just come 1 inch above that line. I'll mark that right there. Okay, and I'll draw a straight line across, and that is going to be my new upper chest line. Now what I'm going to do next is to mark my dart across these 2 points, and I'm going to be marking 1/2 inch towards the center front and 1.5 inches towards the side seam. So I come right here, I mark 1/2 inch. Okay, I come right here, I mark 1.5 inches, and that will come to a total of what? Of 2 inches. And what I'm going to do is to connect this point right here to my bust point line, and this point as well to my bust point line. So just like this, I'm going to connect it. I'll repeat the same thing for this side as well. So guys, if we go on to measure this line, you will notice that this one is longer than this one, and you actually need to make up for that. Okay, so I have about 3 inches here, and I have about 2.5 inches here. So what I'm going to do is to come up here and add an additional 1/2 inch, so that by the time we are sewing our bra cup together, we are not shortened on this part. Okay, so that is why I am extending this line by 1/2 inch. So the next thing I'm going to do is to come to my upper chest line. I'm going to mark 1/2 inch all the way down to my bust point line. Okay, I'm going to connect the points. Now what I'm going to do is to connect this dart line right here. You can go ahead and use a curve ruler if you have that. So I'll just go on to connect it like this. Okay, this 1/2 inch extension I'll connect it like this. Please, for this part, note that if you want to have like a cup that, you know, would show your cleavage a bit, from this line that I have here, instead of marking, that's your armhole line, which we drew a horizontal line across, instead of marking 1 inch upwards, mark ½ inch. So what we're going to do now is to connect this part right here from the bust point to the under bust line. So we have the cup part for the center front drafted. What we need to do is to work on this remaining side. So in order for us to do this, I'm going to mark my shoulder slant of 1 inch, and whatever we have from here to this point should be 8 inches. Divide that into 2, we have 4 inches. Come in by ½ inch. Okay, then on this line where we've marked our armhole line, I usually like to mark my bust circumference on that line. Okay, so I take that line as my bust line, and my bust circumference is 37.5, and 37.5 divided by 4 is 9.375. So I'll come right there. I actually have 9.375 on my tape rule, so I mark that right there. Okay, and then I'm going to use a curved ruler to connect all these points to have my armhole curve. Okay, so in order for me to accommodate my side boob, I'm going to come right here and mark an extra ½ inch. So I'll come right here at my bust line, I mark ½ inch here. Okay, so I'm just going to extend that line downwards like this. And what I'm going to do is to connect this point here to this point here, and connect from this point here to this point here with a curve. So after drafting, this is what my cup looks like. Now what we want to do is to connect these two together like this. Okay, so this is because we are cutting the yoke part out, and I'll go on to connect this part like this to the armhole. Now that we have this all drafted, I'm going to come here and label this part the yoke. So this should be the yoke part. Okay, and what I'm going to do next is to go on to add my allowances. So the first thing I'm going to do is to come right at this point. Now this bust line, we're going to cut out these dots, right? So I'm going to measure what I have here, and that is 1 inch. I'm going to come right here and add that 1 inch. Then I'll come to my under bust. I'll be marking my under bust circumference divided by 4, and my under bust is 33 inches. If I should divide 33 by 4, I will be having 8.25 inches. So I'm going to come right here, mark 8.25, and then I'll be adding these 3 inches, that allowance. Okay, so I'll come right here and mark that. I'll come to my waist. My waist is equally 33 inches. So what I'm going to do is to come here and mark that. So exactly what I have for my under bust is what I'm going to mark for my waist as well. And add the 3 inches, that's allowance. In as much as the shape that I'm going to get at the end of the day is not going to be symmetrical, what I'm going to do is to just draw a straight line down. When sewing, allowances can be taken in. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to come right at the bottom of our basque corset length. I'm going to be adding seam allowance, so I'll be marking 1.5 inches for that allowance, and I'll just come right here and join the points like so. Okay, just join it like this, and then extend this part down as well. Okay, so extend this part down and extend this part down as well. That's our dots. So I'll come right here, extend it. I'll do the same thing for this other side as well, and extend this all the way down. Okay, so make sure to confirm the measurement to be 1.5 inches before going on to draw it all the way down. So now that we have this done, we can go on to cut our pattern out. But please, I want to explain something to us, that we have added our dart allowances back onto this pattern. So what we have here is our real measurements by the time we cut this out. Okay, so what we want to do is to cut this out. While cutting this out on fabric, okay, go ahead to add your seam allowances where necessary. So you can go on to add your seam allowance at your dart places. That's after cutting the pattern out. When cutting it out on fabric, okay, at your cups, add your seam allowances where necessary. First of all, I'll cut out the yoke parts. So for this yoke part, I'll be marking neck width of 4 inches. I'll be marking neck depth of 4 inches as well. And then I'll go on to connect my neckline with a curve. Okay, remember that we've done 1 inch for our shoulder slant. So what I'm going to do is to go on to connect it like this. We have our shoulder slant, and I'll go on to cut this out so we can have a proper yoke that is done. Okay, I'm going to cut this out like this. And this is our yoke for the front pattern. Okay, so now that we have that cut out, I'm going to come right here, and what we are going to do is to cut this out at the basque seam allowance. Please take note of the one that is going towards the side seam, okay? And this one is going towards the center front, so you don't make mistakes while sewing. I'm going to come at my waist around my side seam area. I'm going to mark 1/2 inch below my waist, or half length if that is what you're using. And then I'll come at my basque corset length at the center front area, and I'm going to mark 1/2 inch below that. And then what I'm going to do next is to connect this point here to this point here. All right, I'm just going to connect it like this to form our triangular waistline. So you need to make sure that the two parts of your corset pattern are properly aligned before you go on to cut it out. All right, so I'll just go on to connect it like this. And after connecting, this is what we have, and then I'll go on to cut out my pattern. So this is what it looks like after we cut it out, and now we are going to work on the back pattern for our corsets. So for the back pattern, I have this lines drawn out here. So here is my shoulder line. From here to here is 9 inches, and I marked my armhole divided by 2, which gave me 9 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come right at my shoulder, mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2. For me, that is 8. Okay, so remember that this line is 9 inches, is your armhole line divided by 2. So here I drew a straight line across, and on that same line, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. And what I'm going to do is to connect the 8 inches I marked right here and right here. I'm going to connect it together, and this is where we are going to be drafting the armhole line, okay? And usually I take this line as my bust line. The next line is from shoulder to this point, and is my bust point line. That's 10.5. And then I have my waistline, or your half length, and for me that is 17 inches. So the back pattern is basically very, very simple. What I'm going to do is come right here. Okay, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. So my bust circumference is 37.5. 37.5 divided by 4 is 9.375. So I'll come right here and mark that. And then I'm going to create the armhole curve for the back by just getting my French curve and connecting it to this point. So just create your curve. So here is my armhole curve for the back. So one thing you need to take note of is that if you're adding zipper allowance to your pattern, you can go ahead and do that, and from there you begin to mark all these measurements that I stated. But my pattern doesn't have zipper allowance, so what I'm going to do is to go on to write add zipper allowance, so when we are cutting on fabric we do not make that mistake. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my nipple to nipple distance, that is your bust span divided by 2. So I'm going to come right here, I'm going to mark 4 inches, so mine is 4. Okay, so I mark 4 inches, and I'll go on to connect the 2 points like this. So because this is a basque corset pattern, and of course for basque corset patterns, especially this one we are doing, you usually would want to attach it to a skirt. The back pattern is ending right at the waist. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is to come right here and mark my dart length of, or my dart measurement of 3/4 inches on both sides. Okay, so that is what I'm going with. You can equally go with 1/2 inch for your back pattern, for your dart allowance. Then I'll come right here, I'm going to be marking 1/8 of an inch right on the 2 sides of this line. Okay, so I'll just come right here and mark the first one, come right here, mark the second one, such that by the time you measure the dots that you are taking right here, it's going to come to a 1/4 inch. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to just go on to connect it like this. From here now to 3/4 inches at the waist, come right here, connect from here to 3/4 inches at the waist. And the next thing I'm going to do is to come right at the bust line. I'm going to add this allowance that I'm going to cut out. Okay, so mine is a 1/4 inch, so I'm just going to mark that right there. Then I'm going to come to my waist now, mark my waist circumference divided by 4, and my waist circumference is 33 divided by 4 is 8.25. so I'm just going to come right here and mark that 8.25. my dart allowance is 1.5 inches, so I'll come right here, mark 1.5 inches, and then I'll go on to connect this point here to this 1/4 inch that we have here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to come right at this point. I'm going to mark my shoulder slope, mark my neckline. So my shoulder slope, of course, is 1 inch. So I'll come right here and mark 1 inch. Then I'll be marking my neck width of 4 inches. So I come right here, mark 4 inches. Your neck depth depends on you. So let's say we are going with 3 inches. So I'll mark 3 inches here. Connect these 2 points with a straight line, just like this. And then I'm going to connect this point to this point right here with a curve. Once this is done, I'll label this the yoke. All right. And we're going to cut out the yoke first. So after cutting, this is what I have for the back. And you can see that it sort of like matches at the end of the day with what I have at my yoke area. So that is why you need to add that allowance that you're taking out here at this point. So I need to know where top is and where bottom is, so that I do not make a mistake joining the wrong pieces together. So this is what I have for my back pattern. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial in making a corset pattern with yoke. Kindly give us a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and turn on the bell so you get updates when I post new videos. And I'm going to be seeing you guys in my next tutorial. Hope I see you. Bye.